What is up, baseball fans? Welcome back to another episode of Ryan's Ghost. I am your host, Salbo the Stat Guy. In my last video, I mentioned at the end that I was going to talk or make a video about the run support from the 1970s. As you guys know by the name of the podcast, I'm a staunch defender of Nolan Ryan. I think he was a great pitcher, and one of the things throughout his career was the poor run support that he got because he played on some pretty bad teams. The Angels of the 1970s and the Houston Astros were just average in the 80s, but they weren't very good offensively. So I wanted to do a video today comparing some of the other pitchers in the 1970s and seeing if their run support was as bad as Ryan's, or was it a little bit better, or was it about average. So I wanted to look at just all of the starters overall in the 70s, and the criteria I used was very simple. I just picked the starters from the 70s who pitched a minimum of 200 starts. And so it gave me a list of 55 pitchers from that list. And so if we look at the list of pitchers real quick, obviously the first one is going to be Phil Niekro, just because he was a knuckleballer and it was very common for him to start 40 games in a season. He was the first on the list. He started 376 games during the decade of the 1970s. Next is Gaylord Perry. He had 368 starts. Steve Carlton, 366. Fergie Jenkins had 354. Jim Palmer had 352. Burt Blyleven had 350. Don Sutton had 349. Tom Seaver had 345. Nolan Ryan had 333 starts. Catfish Hunter and Vida Blue are next. They had 327 starts. Jerry Koosman and Mike Torres both had 313. Rick Wise had 303. Jack Billingham had 296. Ken Holtzman had 294. Jim Codd had 290. Jerry Royce and Paul Splittorff had 287. Louis Tion had 285. Tommy John had 282. Mickey Lolich had 277, along with Russ Grimsley. Wilbur Wood, who was a knuckleballer, had 276. Rick Rushell and Doc Ellis had 274. Steve Renko had 272 starts. Rudy May and Jim Slayton had 271. Dave Roberts, who was a pitcher for the Padres and the Astros and also has the same name as the Dodgers manager, he had 264 starts. Pat Dobson had 259. Andy Messersmith, 257. Stan Banson had 254. Fred Norman, who pitched for the Reds, had 253. Bert Hooton, 247. Joe Coleman had 246. Mike Cuellar had 245. So did John Matlack, one of the many Mets on this list. Carl Morton had 237. Jim Barr with the Giants had 236. Jim Lonborn had 235. Randy Jones, 229. Same with Jim Rooker. Steve Rogers, Captain America, had 228. Steve Stone had 220. Dave Goltz, who pitched for the Minnesota Twins most of his career, he had 215. Bill Bonham had 210. Woody Fryman had 209. Clay Kirby had 204, same with J.R. Richards and Fritz Peterson and Doc Medich. And to round out the list, Jim Colborn had 202, and Bill Singer, Jim Perry, brother of Gaylord Perry, and Claude Austin had 201 starts. So we had 55 pitchers in general overall who had 200 starts in the 1970s. And so if we take a look at how those pitchers did, I broke it down basically into run support categories, and using baseballreference.com, they break the starters down into how many games did they get 0, 1, or 2 runs of support, how many games did they get 3 to 5 runs of support, and the last one is how many games did they get 6 or more runs of support from their offense. And so if we look at the first category, which is starts or overall starts where a pitcher got 0, 1, or 2 runs from their team. And number one on the list, obviously no surprise, is Nolan Ryan, okay? During the 70s, he had 132 starts, most out of any pitcher, where his team gave him 0, 1, or 2 runs. Second on the list was Burt Blyleven. He had 123 starts. Jerry Koosman had 120. Gaylord Perry was next, 118. Steve Carlton had 117. Phil Niekro had 116. Same as Jim Palmer, he had 116 as well. Tom Seaver had 115, Mickey Lolich 109, Don Sutton 108, Vida Blue had 107, Fergie Jenkins had 103, and John Matlack had 100. So I just wanted to give you like the top 10, 15. I didn't want to name every single pitcher, else it'd be a lot longer of a video. But as you can see, some big names are up there, and I think overall in general, run support was obviously not very good in the 1970s compared to some other decades. So if we look at the winning percentage, so the starts where a pitcher got 0, 1, or 2 runs, how did they do as far as wins and losses? And even though they weren't getting a whole lot of support from their teammates, the top 10 as far as winning percentage goes, number 1 was kind of a surprise to me. It was Mike Cuellar. Okay, he won 31% of his starts where his team gave him 0, 1, or 2 runs. He was 23 wins and 51 losses. Number 2 on the list was Tommy John. He won 30% of his starts where his team gave him 0, 1, or 2 runs. He was 21 wins and 50 losses. Number 3 on the list is Tom Seaver. He won 29% of his starts, 29 and 72 overall record. Gaylord Perry was 4th. He won 27%. He had 30 wins, which was the most out of any pitcher, and 81 losses. Number 5 was Jim Palmer. He won 27% of his games where he got 0, 1, or 2 runs. Number 6 was Fergie Jenkins. He won 26% of those games. Vida Blue and Louis Tiant both won 24% of their games. Steve Carlton was next with 23%. Don Sutton 23% as well, and John Matlack 23%. Now, if we look at the highest percentage of starts with 0, 1, or 2 runs, obviously some starters had more starts than others, and so I wanted to keep it fair, give the overall number, but also give you a percentage as well. And number 1 on the list was John Matlack, who spent most of the 70s with the New York Mets, and as we know, the Mets, aside from 73 when they won the NL pennant, they were not very good in the 70s. And so he went 41% of his starts that his team gave him 0, 1, or 2 runs. Okay. Second on the list was Nolan Ryan. He had 40% of his starts where he got 0, 1, or 2 runs. Next was Mickey Lolich, 39% of his starts. 4th was Randy Jones, 38%. 5th was Steve Rogers, 38%. Jerry Koosman, 38% as well. Jim Perry, Gaylord's brother, had 37% of his starts with 0, 1, or 2 runs. Next was Andy Messersmith, Stan Banson, and Dave Roberts, all with 36% of their starts where they got 0, 1, or 2 runs. So, if we look at the next category, okay, this is games started with 3 to 5 runs of support. Now, 3 to 5 runs of support is pretty good. You know, I would say most of the time, at least over 50% of the time, if you give your pitcher anywhere from 3 to 5 runs, they're pretty much, if they're good, they're going to win the game for you, okay? And so, if we look at the pitchers, number 1 on the list was Gaylord Perry, okay? He had 159 starts where his team gave him 3 to 5 runs of support. Okay, second on the list was Phil Niekro. He had 151 starts with 3 to 5 runs of support. Third was Tom Seaver with 142. 4th was Fergie Jenkins with 138. 5th was Burt Blyleven with 136. Next was Jim Palmer. He had 135. Same with Catfish Hunter. Next was Don Sutton with 134. Then you had Steve Carlton with 129. Nolan Ryan had 128 starts, as did Rick Russell. So if we look at the winning percentage, so when they got 3 to 5 runs of support, what was their win total? You know, how did they do? And number 1 on that list was actually a tie between Tom Seaver and Jim Palmer. Both of them won 75% of their starts where their team gave them 3 to 5 runs of support. Third was J.R. Richard, who was a pitcher for the Astros, and aside from a stroke he suffered in 1980, which caused him to retire, he was a really good pitcher and probably on his way to a Hall of Fame career. Before he was struck down, like I said, by a stroke, and he had to retire after that. 4th on the list was Mickey Lolich. He got 70% of his starts. He won where he got 3 to 5 runs of support. Next was Jim Perry. He had 70% as well. Ross Grimsley, who pitched for the Montreal Expos during the 70s, and I believe the Baltimore Orioles as well. He won 69% of his starts where his team gave him 3 to 5 runs. Next was Louis Tiant. He won 69% of his starts as well. Same with Jim Longborn. Don Sutton won 68% of his starts where he got 3 to 5 runs. Nolan Ryan 68% as well. Jerry Koosman 68%, and Jim Cott also 68%. Now, as far as the percentage of starts with 3 to 5 runs of support, that was a little bit of a surprise because number 1 on the list was a Chicago Cubs pitcher called Rick Russell, who basically got 47% of his starts in the 1970s. His team gave him 3 to 5 runs of support. Second on the list was Jim Slayton, which was kind of a surprise as well because he pitched for the Milwaukee Brewers in the 70s and they weren't very good back then. But they gave him pretty good run support. Third on the list was Pat Dobson, 45% of his starts. He got 3 to 5 runs of support. Next was a tie. J.R. Richard and Steve Rogers both had 44%. Tommy John, Gaylord Perry, and Randy Jones and Bill Bonham and Clay Kirby all had 43% of their starts where their team scored 3 to 5 runs for them. Now, in the last category, starts where you got 6 or more runs of support. So basically, if you got 6 runs in a game as a starting pitcher in the 70s, you basically were pretty much going to win the game. And from the count of mine, 42 of the pitchers on the list had a 90% winning percentage when their team scored 6 or more runs. So you were basically going to pretty much win the game 9 out of 10 times if you gave your starting pitcher 6 runs of support. And so the starter with the most starts with 6 or more runs was actually Steve Carlton. He had 120 starts where his team got him 6 or more runs. Number 2 on the list was Fergie Jenkins with 113. Mike Torres was next on the list. Journeyman Mike Torres, who spent his career with a lot of different teams. He had 112 starts where his team got 6 or more runs. So even though he bounced around a lot, he really got a lot of good run support. 4th on the list was Phil Niekro with 109. Catfish Hunter with 108 was next. Then you had Don Sutton, 107. Jack Billingham, who pitched for the Big Red Machine in the 70s, so he had 103 starts, where he got 6 or more runs. Louis Tiant had 102 starts. Jim Palmer, 101. And Jim Cott rounded out the top 10 with 99. Now, like I said, as far as winning percentage goes, so the pitchers that won their games when they got 6 or more runs of support, a lot of Hall of Famers on this list, and the first guy on the list, number 1, was Jim Palmer, who won 99% of his starts where the Baltimore Orioles got 6 or more runs. He went 74-1 altogether in the 70s. And when you're playing behind Brooke Robinson and Mark Belanger, who were Golden Glovers almost every year, Baltimore was a juggernaut in the 70s. They won a couple of American League East titles. They made the World Series a couple years. They had a really good team. And so it's not surprising to see Jim Palmer at the top of the list. He definitely got plenty of run support. Number 2 was a surprise. It was Mike Torres. 98% of his starts that he had in the 1970s, he won when his team gave him 6 or more runs. He had 78 wins and only 2 losses. 3rd on the list was Fred Norman. He won 98% of his starts as well, 39-1. Next was Bert Hooton. He won 98% of his starts as well, 44-1 when the team gave him 6 or more runs. 5th was Burt Blyleven, 65 wins, and only 2 losses, 97%. Paul Splittorff, who pitched for the Kansas City Royals in their heyday, 97% of his games he won when he got 6 or more runs. He was 61-2. Next is Tom Seaver, who won 97% of his starts with the Mets and the Reds when he got 6 or more runs. He was 72 wins and only 2 losses. Woody Fryman, 97% of his games he won as well. He went 31-1. And Captain America Steve Rogers rounds out the top 10. 97% of his games he won. He was 29-1 in the 1970s when he got 6 or more runs. Now, as I said, 42 of the pitchers won 90% of their games when they got 6 or more runs. The lowest percentage actually on the list was a guy named Clay Kirby, who pitched for the Padres in the 70s, and they were not very good back then. And he only won 79% of his starts where he got 6 or more runs. He got 26 wins and 7 losses. Now, as far as the pitchers who had the highest percentage of starts where their team gave them 6 or more runs, number 1 on the list was another surprise, Mike Torres again. 36% of his starts in the 1970s, his team gave him 6 or more runs. Second on the list was Louis Tiant. He actually tied with Mike Torres. He got 36%, as well as Dave Goltz. 36% of his starts as well. His Twins gave him 6 or more runs. Next was Jack Billingham, 35%. Then Jim Longborn, 34%. Jim Cott, 34%. Steve Carlton and Catfish Hunter, both 33% of their starts, 6 or more runs. And then we had Jerry Royce, Mike Cuellar, Jim Rooker, and Fergie Jenkins all had 32% of their starts where their team got 6 or more runs for them. Now, if we go back to the no run support argument, I went back and I tallied up the number of starts in the 1970s where a pitcher got 0 runs. So basically their team was shut out. And so obviously if your team is shut out, you're not going to get the win no matter how well you pitch. And there were a couple of familiar names at the top of the list. Tied for first obviously was Nolan Ryan and Phil Niekro. They both had 36 games where their offense scored 0 runs for them. Okay. Second on the list was Rudy May. 32 of his games in the 70s, his team gave him 0 runs. Next was Tom Seaver, 31 of his starts. Then you had Mickey Lolich with 28, Fergie Jenkins, 27. And then you had Jerry Koosman, Stan Banson, and Gaylord Perry, all with 26 starts where they got no runs. And to round out the top 10, Burt Blyleven and Steve Carlton had 25 starts apiece where their team gave them 0 runs. Now, if you look at the games where a pitcher got 1 run of support, so if they didn't win the game 1-0, they weren't going to get a win at all. Okay, and number 1 on the list was Don Sutton. Okay, during his time with the Dodgers, he had 47 games in the 1970s where the Dodgers gave him 1 run of support. 2 on the list was a tie between Nolan Ryan and Jerry Koosman. They both had 46 starts where their team gave them 1 run of support. 3rd on the list was Burt Blyleven. He had 45. Then you had Dave Roberts at 43. Jim Palmer had 42. Gaylord Perry had 41. Steve Carlton and John Matlack both had 40, and then you had Wilbur Wood, who had 39 starts, where his team gave him 1 run of support. So if we add up those totals, number 1 is obviously Nolan Ryan. He had 82 starts where his team scored 0 or 1 run for him. So once again, it goes back to the whole argument where Ryan had such bad run support during his career. He definitely probably should have had a couple more or a lot more W's in the column if his team actually gave him any kind of run support. Second on the list was Jerry Koosman. He had 72 starts where his team scored 0 or 1 run for him. Third was Burt Blyleven, who had 70. Next was Gaylord Perry with 67. Then you had Don Sutton on the fifth with 66. Fifth with 66 starts. Number 6 was Steve Carlton. He had 65 starts. 7 was Dave Roberts, 64, along with Phil Negro. Then you had Jim Palmer with 61. And to round out the top 10, Tom Seaver had 60 starts where his team gave him 0 or 1 run. Now, percentage of starts where his team gave him 0 or 1 run of support, because like I said, some starters had more starts than others. But if we look at the percentage-wise, number 1 was actually Dave Roberts. 67% of his starts in the 1970s, his team gave him 0 or 1 run. So, I mean, you want to talk about some bad luck, okay? Second on the list was Bill Singer. 65% of his starts, his team gave him 0 or 1 run. Third was Jerry Royce, 64%. Fourth was Mike Cuellar with 63%. Fifth on the list was Nolan Ryan, 62% of his starts. Then you had Joe Coleman, 62% as well. Clay Kirby, 62%. Don Sutton and Carl Morton and Randy Jones each had 61% of their starts with 0 or 1 run. And Catfish Hunter and Jerry Koosman round out the list with 60% of their starts where their team gave them 0 or 1 run of support. Now, as far as individual seasons go, I broke it down and took a list of all the pitchers that had 20 or more starts in a season where their team gave them 0, 1, or 2 runs. So basically half of their starts. And there were 6 pitchers that actually had 20 starts in a season where they got 0, 1, or 2 runs of support. And Nolan Ryan was actually number 1 on the list because he actually had 2 such seasons. In 1972, the Angels scored 0, 1, or 2 runs for Ryan in 20 games. Okay, he went 7-13 in those games with a 2.16 ERA. Okay, in 6 of those starts, the Angels got shut out, and in 7 of those starts, they scored 1 run for him. So 13 out of the 20 starts, he got 0 or 1 run. So like I said, unless he was going to win 13 games 1-0, he wasn't going to get the victory. And in 1972, he still won 19 games, despite the fact he was getting 0 help from his offense. Then again, in 1976, Ryan had 20 starts where the Angels gave him 0, 1, or 2 runs of support. That year he went 5-13 with a 2.99 ERA. Okay, in 7 of those starts, his team scored 0 runs, and in the other 7 starts, they gave him 1 run. So he had 14 of his 20 starts, 70% of his starts, where his teams gave him 0, 1, or 2 runs of support. And I believe in 76, Ryan won 17 games. So it's kind of a miracle that he actually won that many, considering how bad his offense was. Second on the list is Gaylord Perry. In 1972, he really did have a remarkable season. He got a 1.92 ERA. He won 24 games, but he lost 16 of them. And in that year, he had 23 starts where the Indians gave him 0, 1, or 2 runs of support. Okay, in 4 of those starts, the Indians got shut out, and in 6 of those starts, they gave him 1 run, and in the other 13 starts, they gave him 2 runs. But still, he did manage to win 8 of those 23 starts. He went 8-15, but he had a 2.26 ERA, so he was still pitching at a very high level and losing a lot of 1-run games in 1972. But like I said, he still won the Cy Young Award anyway and had an ERA under 2, so it really was a remarkable season. Third pitcher on the list is Wilbur Wood. Okay, in 1972 as well, he had 20 starts where they gave him 0, 1, or 2 runs. He pitched for the White Sox that year, and in 4 of those games he got 0 runs, and in 9 of those games he got 1 run. Okay, and in those 20 starts, he went 5-14 with a 2.55 ERA. So he was pitching really well despite the fact that his team was giving him nothing in return. The next pitcher on the list was Vida Blue. Okay, in 1977, he was pitching for the San Francisco Giants, and he had 20 starts where they gave him 0, 1, or 2 runs, and he went 3 wins and 16 losses in those starts with a 4.25 ERA. Okay, they got shut out in 3 of his starts, and he gave up 1 run in 7 of them. So in half of his starts, he basically got no help whatsoever. The next pitcher on the list was Dave Roberts. Okay, in 1971, he was pitching for the San Diego Padres, and he had 20 starts where his team scored 0, 1, or 2 runs. Okay, in 5 of those starts, they got shut out, and in 9 of those starts, they gave him 1 run. Okay, and in those 14 starts, he went in those 20 starts, he went 5-13, but he had a 1.87 ERA. So he was pitching phenomenal despite the fact he was getting no run support. And for the season, he had 14 wins and 17 losses, but he had a 2.10 ERA, which just, I think, shows you how bad the Padres' offense was in the 1970s. And the last pitcher on the list was actually another Padre, Randy Jones. In 1974, he had 20 starts for the Padres where they gave him 0, 1, or 2 runs of support. And he went 1-16 in those starts with a 4.55 ERA. In 8 of those starts, they got shut out, and in 7 of those starts, they gave him 1 run. So in 15 of his 20 starts, he got 1 run or less. So, I mean, talk about a bad offense. I mean, it must have been so disheartening for Randy Jones to go to the mound every game that he pitched for the Padres in 1974 and basically know that if he wasn't, perfect, he wasn't going to win the game. Well, in conclusion, I had so much fun breaking down those pitchers from the 70s and talking about run support that I'm going to do a follow-up video and take all the pitchers from the 1980s who had 200 or more starts and break down and make a spreadsheet and put down their winning percentage and their run support as well. And since I've already started, I can tell you right now, there were 15 pitchers in the 70s that had 300 or more starts, and that is cut in half, where there's only 7 pitchers in the 80s that had 300 starts. But I think the overall total is still the same, about 55 pitchers. So, thanks for watching. Please leave a like. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the video. Let me know who your favorite pitcher was, maybe from the 70s, or who was the worst as far as run support goes and who had the worst luck. But I think it's fascinating because baseball is a team game. And so unless your team is going to support the pitcher, it doesn't really matter how well he pitches. If he's not going to get runs to back him up, he's basically not going to win the game. So it just kind of shows you, I think, how tough it was to be a pitcher in the 1970s. I mean, they did throw a lot of complete games, they threw a lot of innings, but they just did not get the run support that they probably should have. And if they pitched today, it probably would have been a little bit different. Well, until next time, everyone, I'm Salbo the Stat Guy. Take it easy.